She was human. She was important, she was loved, she was valued. And I would want the public to know that.
Maxine Goforth says releasing her daughter's name prevented Kelly Goforth from becoming a statistic.
Withholding her name wouldn't have given me the opportunity, you know, to share what she was as a person. Not just some young Indigenous girl that was scooped off the street and killed. And
Kelly Goforth was 21 years old when she was murdered. Her mother has become an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. She's concerned her cause may fall off the public's radar if Regina police move forward with a plan to withhold the identities of most homicide victims. Names would only be released if public safety is at risk or if it's necessary for the investigation.
We can't just say carte blanche every time there's a homicide, we're going to name the victim.
Regina police say they're just responding to Saskatchewan's new Freedom of Information and Privacy legislation. But that interpretation appears to be at odds with the province's justice minister. In a statement emailed, he says he anticipates names will be released as they have in the past. The idea of withholding names worries those who work with intimate partner violence.
If cases can happen where people are losing their lives and the general public never becomes aware of it, there's a lot less of a drive to end this type of violence.
This legal expert is raising a red flag.
And that really goes against a central tenet of our liberal democratic system.
Edmonton police have a similar policy in place. Last year, they withheld the names of 40% of homicide victims, citing privacy rights of the deceased. Regina's police board met in private today to discuss the homicide naming policy. Police are expected to make a final decision next month. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Regina.
Let's pick up on a point Olivia just made about domestic violence cases and the concerns among people who work with victims. And to talk more about this, Crystal Giesbrecht joins us from Regina. She's with an association that works with shelters across Saskatchewan. And why is it that you want the names of domestic homicide victims released?
I think it's important for a number of reasons. First and foremost, we want to remember those victims and we don't want their death to just go away quietly. But also, having the names and knowing information about these cases helps to make the public aware of the scope of the problem. The more we know about domestic homicide cases, the more we can learn from them and the more we can put that toward action to prevent future homicides.
So you've heard from some police departments, particularly in Saskatchewan, but I've heard this in other places in the country as well. They talk about concerns about privacy and also that they don't need to release these names for investigative purposes. What do you say to the police?
My concern about not releasing names is that in cases of domestic homicide particularly, it often is a homicide-suicide. So there will be no accused who's charged and the information will never be released through court records. That means it just goes away and the public doesn't know about the story, the names are never released. And I think that's a missed opportunity, again, to make people aware of the scope of this problem in our country, but also to learn something about the red flags and the warning signs that were present in that situation, and to do what we can to prevent future domestic homicides.
All right. Crystal Giesbrecht, thank you very much for speaking with us this evening.
Thank you.
Police forces across Canada treat the issue of naming homicide victims differently. In Calgary, Vancouver, and Toronto, the forces generally identify all homicide victims. In Quebec, most local police and the provincial force don't release names without a family's consent.